many would consider like I had a real opportunity cost. So I had a white collar job and I had a GMAT score above Harvard's mid score. And so I had a really clear path of what my life could look like in the next 20, 30 years. And it was fairly well defined. Like I'll go to Harvard or Stanford or one of the top business schools. And then I will either go back into management consulting or I'll go into investment banking and then eventually end up in private equity. And that would be the path, right? And then all the flowers would be set at my feet. And, everyone would say, we approve of you. You're an excellent person. But when I saw the people who were 20 years ahead of me, I really didn't want their life. And then it started making me look at my life, and I was like, I don't even know if I really want my life. And so the big decisions that I've made in my life, unfortunately, have almost always come at the doorstep of a parent death. And I think maybe in some ways that makes me a coward for having needed death to make decisions. And so operationalizing that has been something that has helped me move faster to make decisions that I know I need to make but don't. And so like the first big kind of like what it felt like a death decision was I was a consultant, 22-ish years old. I had a paid for, condo that I bought overlooking the city. And I remember thinking like, I really hope I don't wake up tomorrow. And I don't mean that to be melodramatic. I just for a period of time, I just always just like hoped every night. I was like, I just really hope I don't wake up tomorrow. Like, I just don't want to do this. And what was difficult about that was that at that time was when my father was most proud of me. Because I was doing everything that was according to plan. He could talk about like his son who graduated in 3 years from Vanderbilt, had the good job, like everything we're following the plan. And it was upon realizing that my ultimate expression of living out his dream was me feeling like I didn't want to be alive. And so and it took me time to get to that point to even articulate that. Because obviously you never want to kind of like admit failure of like, I have really messed something up here. But I was living my life to win someone else's game. And when I realized that, one of our dreams had to die, either his or mine. And when I realized that his dream must die in order for mine to live was a statement that I kind of crystallized when I was at that point in my life. Like I had to keep repeating that, like his dream has to die in order for mine to live. And so to put this in perspective of like how afraid of my father's judgment I left the state and drove across the country halfway through before calling him to tell him that I was gone. And so I bring this up because I'm not trying to be dramatic here, but I'm saying that if you feel a lot of pressure, I get it. Like I tried to leave the job that I was at to pursue just literally anything that wasn't that. Just I wanted to start a business at some point. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just knew that what I was doing was not the path I wanted to be on. And everybody around me wanted me to be on that path. And so I went to go be like, hey, I'm thinking about doing something else. And, it would always be don't later, like everything's good later. And I remember when I called my dad and I told him that. He said, understand, why don't you come home? Like, come home. Well, I didn't tell him that I was gone yet. Like I said, hey, I want to go pursue this fitness thing. He said, cool, come over for lunch. We'll talk about it, and I was like, I'm already gone. And then obviously his tone changed a lot. And our relationship struggled for, years after that. And I also bring that up because sometimes there's this illusion that like, you get on the Oscar stage or whatever it is, and you're like, hey, I just want to thank, my mom, my dad, my friends for always supporting me. And I can't say that. And I wish I could. And you might not be able to say that either. And I also don't think that's a reason not to do it. And so we did struggle for years after that to kind of like, because I was basically living as what was once his prodigal son goes and takes a minimum wage job as a personal trainer at a gym, cleaning floors and stuff to learn the gym business. But that was ultimately like how I broke free, literally, physically leaving the area and, mentally. But I think that I had to accept that there was a timeline where my father would never talk to me again. And I had to be okay with that to pursue what I wanted. And I think that when you asked the original question, what are the people from 0 to 1 really looking for? I read tons of business books at that time, but I couldn't use any of them because I was so afraid. And what's crazy is that like, I think about it now in retrospect, and it's like, it's crazy how large the perceived monsters can appear. And Layla has this quote that I love, but it's fear is a mile wide and an inch deep. And so you look at it and it looks like this ocean. And then you take the first step and you realize you don't drown because it's like, oh, there's ground underneath of this, right? There's other people who are more on my path. And the friends you lose, you gain new friends, right? And so that fear was the hardest decision that I've had to overcome in my entrepreneurial career. And I think of all the split paths in my life, that was the one that if I had many timelines or many universes that existed, that was probably the one that is the most likely that I would not have parted from. So I think in like 90% of universes that Alex Hormozi exists, I'm just a consultant somewhere. And so I would encourage you, if you do feel that, you're not going to die. Like you won't die and you might just live.
It's so interesting because I think everything you've said is just absolutely spot on, but you're right in the way you say that if you'd asked an audience member listening now
Yeah.
why they haven't started yet, they wouldn't say fear.
Yeah.
They would say, I haven't got the X, I haven't got the Y. But actually it is such an emotional thing. And we don't talk about that enough because uncertainty is, humans seem to be allergic to uncertainty and they'd rather the certain misery of their current situation typically than uncertainty.